How many times have you heard experiences from individuals and families who are struggling with the challenges of aging, caregiving, the unknowns of health, loneliness, financial worry, and just general overwhelm? I spent 10 years working in the aging sector, hearing these same stories of struggle over and over again. And at the root of it all, no one is teaching us how to plan for aging from a holistic perspective. So welcome to the Ageucation Podcast. This is where you will get the aging education you didn't know you needed. My name is Jess Davis. If you are in your 60s or 70s, or you have parents in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, you are in the right place, my friend. We are all aging. We all want to maintain our autonomy and independence as we age. So let's intentionally prepare our families for the needs of our eldest years. Hello. Welcome back to the Ageucation Podcast. I hope you're ready for some big thoughts today, because this story of aging autonomy is one I am really passionate about, and it will probably leave me bringing you the heat today from a very loving place, of course, but maybe a tough love place, because I really strongly believe that these types of conversations I'm going to talk about are things that we need to be opening up in our families. Because this is another one of those stories that I've heard in many different forms before. The details of the situation change, but the core problem is always the same. So, as one example of this type of situation, a man is in the hospital after having a heart attack, and his wife and daughter are there with him. The man's general state of health is not in a great place, so the doctor is asking him what his DNR wishes are. So DNR stands for do not resuscitate. So DNR wishes, or level of resuscitation, it's really a sliding scale of how you want your care to be handled if you are in a state that requires things like CPR, a defibrillator, breathing assistive devices, etc., etc. And let me pause here to say that the doctor in this situation is asking him this question smack in the middle of this family being shattered into turmoil, grief, and unknown because the father just had a heart attack. So just keep that in mind, that is their state of mind as all of this is going down. So this man has just had a heart attack. His terrified wife and daughter are at his bedside, and the doctor is asking him what his DNR wishes are, because this man has never documented or discussed them with any of his family or care providers. So, as a man in his 80s, he responds and says he wants to go without resuscitation efforts. He doesn't want CPR performed on him or to be kept on a ventilator, etc. But his wife, standing there hearing this, strongly disagrees and convinces him in the moment to change his decision and take all the resuscitation treatments possible. And the doctor allows it all to happen and changes the notes about the patient's care wishes. And this is not aging autonomy. Influencing someone else's aging and end-of-life care decisions because of your own mindset and emotions is a form of control and holding power over another person. And that is not supporting aging autonomy for the individual. I will say that I do believe that decisions like this should be and can be discussed with family members, and everyone's opinions can be voiced and heard and taken into consideration. but ultimately it is an individual's decision as to how they choose to be cared for in an emergency situation. This man had identified his wishes for his future of care, and in a very emotional state, his wife was convincing him to change his mind. Which leads me to my next point of insight in this situation. These decisions should not be made in the middle of a crisis situation from an intensely emotional state. These are the types of decisions that an aging adult needs to be making way ahead of time. And maybe I should reword that, because I said an aging adult needs to be making these decisions ahead of time. But what I really mean is any and every adult should be making these decisions ahead of time. Maybe as someone in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, it's an obvious choice for you that you want to have full resuscitation efforts in a crisis situation. But maybe you reach your 60s and you receive a diagnosis that leads you to want to change your decision. Maybe now with this new diagnosis, you want breathing support, but you don't want your body to undergo CPR and a defibrillator. Like, these are just random examples I'm throwing out, but my point is, as an adult with full cognitive function, in charge of your own healthcare decisions, you need to identify to your family or whoever your care partner is what your wishes are if you are faced with a crisis situation. And then you need to update your family or your care partner if you ever change your mind on those decisions, which you're completely allowed to do. As you continue aging, you need to reevaluate how you want to be cared for and tell your family those wishes, because otherwise they don't know. They have no idea. So whether you are an aging adult or a family member or care partner to an aging adult, you need to be open and honest about having these conversations. As an aging adult, you can listen and hear out your family members on what they would want for you and then make your decision. But you have to stand firm in your aging autonomy and your right to choose what care you receive. And as a family member or a care partner, you can calmly and clearly voice your opinion, but you have to respect the decision of the individual because it is their own body and their own care. Respect their aging autonomy. I will note as well that this conversation obviously changes when cognitive impairment or a diagnosis of cognitive decline is in the mix. That is a very different situation with powers of attorney and substitute decision makers and everything. However, I will say again, these are conversations that you should be having well in advance of a potential diagnosis around cognitive health, so that any POA or substitute decision maker would know how the aging individual wants their care decisions to be made. Because I'll tell you, I have witnessed adult children who are having to make these decisions for their parent with advanced dementia who gave no direction and they had no previous conversations about it. I've also witnessed adult children who did have these proactive conversations with their parent, and it is a completely different set of emotions that I watch those people go through. One is full of uncertainty and overwhelm and fear, while the other one, although still grieving the situation, has an underlying sense of calm and clarity because they know the care decisions being made are what their parent specifically said they wanted. And again, I will not remove the fact that both people are still in deep grief and loss. But the proactive conversations are like this weird type of comfort, even through grief and loss. It takes a huge load off of a family member or a care partner when in the heat of the moment and at the height of their emotions, they are not making new decisions. They already know the answers because it was a conversation that was had intentionally and proactively. Those are two words that you will hear me say over and over again. Your family must be intentional and proactive about aging care and end-of-life care decisions. We have to remove the stigma and the ignorance and the fluff around aging and death in order to ensure someone is anchored in their aging autonomy and therefore can create their own optimal aging experience. So I'm sure this episode leaves you with a lot to think about. Think about who you need to have these conversations with. Whose aging autonomy do you need to show support for? Is it your own aging autonomy that you need to reflect on and then voice to your care partner? Or is it someone else, your spouse, your parent, maybe even a grandparent? We all have someone we need to have this conversation with. Most of us have multiple people we need to have this conversation with. Any one of us could find ourselves in a crisis situation someday. Please make sure you've done the work to prepare for it. You and your family will thank you. I'll see you on the next episode. Are you listening to this podcast and feeling like you want more? Like you want to take the next step in learning about age planning and how that could benefit your family? Well, I have the perfect little introduction into my 3 main frameworks that I use to coach families through being proactive and intentional about their aging journey. So come check them out. The Ageucation Mini-Course. The course is made up of 6 videos that are packed with valuable information and framework explanations to give you a strong visual and create a foundation for understanding how to start being proactive and intentional about planning for aging in your family. Visit my website, nestage.ca/mini-course to learn more and dive in. That's nestage.ca/mini-course. You can find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ageucation Podcast. I have 3 reminders before you go. Number 1, go check out the show notes for any resources or links that I mentioned in this episode that may have piqued your interest. Number 2, please share this episode with a friend whom you think it would bless, because in order for more families to benefit from my age planning resources, I need listeners like you to spread the word. And number 3, I would love to hear from you. Email me with your thoughts on this episode or suggest a topic you'd like to hear on a future episode. Find my email in the show notes. And remember, we're all aging. Aging is the same as living, and it is a privilege to live and to age.